guys, today I have a really exciting educational video for you. And actually I'm going to compare two engraved guns that were believed, or I believe were issued to Luftwaffe aces. Now, if you're curious about this one, you remember that I said this is my favorite gun ever, and I'm sure this was presented to a Luftwaffe ace. If you haven't watched the video, go back and watch it. It's one of my favorites. Luftwaffe ace, Hans Philipp, also known as Phipps, and I have a little action figure. He liked foxes, evidently. He had a pet fox. That was where he was in the Russian front. Anyway, it's a really cool video about a guy who had over 200 kills, Luftwaffe ace, and his name is on it along with 100 kills, so he got this after 100 kills. But this week, I have a second Walther PP to come in. Also a rare caliber. This one is in 9mm, which is a rare caliber. And this one, actually this side is the money shot. This one is in 22 caliber and perhaps was issued to a Luftwaffe ace. So we're going to do a little bit of education and explore these two guns. If you're curious about this one, you're going to be even more curious about this one, which would make you bi-curious. So let's take a few minutes to talk about this gun and the man who we theorize it was presented to. We don't have a rock-solid case here like we do for the Phipps gun, but with your help, we might be able to discover more. Now, sometimes you guys make comments and say, you should have done more research or you should have looked into this more before you made the video. I will tell you, this gun, this assembly, needs more research. And I just don't have time. Today, we rescued another 20 guns from Canada, so I want to show you those. 20 more guns from Canada, and take a look at this booty. We picked up a collection of guns that I haven't even opened the boxes yet. Very cool stuff, but all that is to say, I'm really swamped trying to get these videos out because I want to show them to you. So please help me out. Let me explain a little bit about this assembly. And then I'm sure you can probably help us out because family members have to be out there. Okay, the first piece of evidence that probably could be tracked down. This is the capture paper from J.E. Ford. Notice the date, November 1945. Therefore, I don't believe this gun and this dagger were taken as a result of hostilities. I do believe the war was well over. There was a lot of cooperation between the West German sector and the GIs. And in fact, the person that this went to, second clue, is Gunther Bar. I've written that out for you so you can see the spelling. But Gunther Bar, if you Google it, it'll come up right away that he was a Luftwaffe ace. This is dated 1939. By the way, Gunther died in 2009. So there probably are family members still surviving who might be able to say, yes, he did have this presentation dagger. I'll talk a little bit more about the dagger in a minute. And he had this presentation Walther PP. Hopefully somebody will remember it and be able to chime in and say, yes, that actually came from him. Otherwise, there's not a strong connection other than this name, 1939, and this capture certificate. And certainly people could look this up and see if they could find a living relative and just, find out, was this brought back in this original condition and not something that was done later. Let me go over a couple of reasons why I believe this is an authentic presentation gun to a Luftwaffe ace along with this dagger. However, not a factory engraved Walther PP. So again, not factory engraved, but a special presentation gun either he ordered for himself or again, his squadron or his mates ordered it for him. That's the educational part of this video. I'm going to go over the reasons why I have come to that conclusion. Okay, let's start with the dagger. The style of this dagger is NSFK. So that was the flying clubs. We've done videos before when we talked about the NSFK. And here you see one. They typically have the blue handle and the blue scabbard. In this case, however, and Gunther put his name on it in 1939. Let's just clarify, Gunther was born in July of 1921, which means he was 17 to 18 in 1939. Probably not old enough to join the Luftwaffe, but he was clearly a member of the NSFK, which was like a training grounds for young Germans who wanted to become Luftwaffe pilots. He could have ordered it for himself. He could have gotten this from his commanding officer for some kind of, he was just an excellent trainee. But whatever the case, this looks a little amateurish because you can see it's centered here. His last name is not centered, but the date is centered. And then on this side, I'm sure you can help me out, A Gruppa 2 or A Gruppa 11. And then this word here, I was not able to translate, but if somebody told me it means destroyer, so maybe he was in a destroyer unit, but somebody from Germany or who knows German, here it is spelled out for you, and somebody can help us out. Again, I'm gathering information. There's a couple of flaws with this in that it's missing the connector. It's a screw. It's missing a screw here and then also connector here. Maybe there was an ornamental tip that has been removed. Again, ivory handle, not the typical style, so a special order presentation dagger. Here you see the maker. And what's important here is the swastika, because that's all part of this story. Now, let's go to the gun. This is the Phipps gun, and you see the inscription, Phipps, 100 kills. Also, there's an insignia from his plane. That was the same insignia that was on his plane. And we said at the time we did this video that from the serial number, I believe it was factory engraved. So the reason I say that, so point number one, is if it's factory engraved, usually there will be other engraved guns around it in serial numbers. So in other words, from the factory, they would take 2 or 3 orders for engraved guns. They would pull them off the assembly line. So you almost never see one and done, meaning one gun pulled off. Of course, if it was a very high-ranking Nazi official and they say, I want one gun, they would go get it, and you might find one standalone. But in this case, there are other engraved guns around it. And I make that point in the video. Also, the style, but let's just talk about the serial number first. On this one, you see the serial number, and it is the 248 range, 248,000 range. The P is not there, and it should be. So in this serial range, there are no other engraved guns. It's standalone all by itself. So I believe this was purchased as a commercial Walther PP, maybe by Gunther or his squad mates. And later, when he became an ace, by the way, this gun was made in 1942. He was an ace by 1943. And perhaps they had it custom engraved and presented to him. They added the ivory grips, and remember, he likes ivory because the handle on the dagger was also ivory. But to be clear, this gun was made in 42 and presented likely in 43 when Gunther became an ace. Now let's take a look at some more evidence. Point number 2, the P is removed. When the engraver did this, the P was removed, and it should be there. And also, they engraved over the eagle N right here. Now, I've looked at dozens of factory engraved guns, and the Walther factory did not typically, other than, again, Goering's gun, Himmler's gun, Hitler's gun, high-ranking officials, they did engrave over the proof marks, but in fact, they also engraved over the serial number, and usually the serial number is under the grip. But the vast majority of engraved guns, they are not going to remove the P, and they're not going to engrave over the proof mark. And the example of that is this one. You see the P, and it's distinctly, they stay away from the serial number, not to destroy that. And then you'd also see this is a crown N proof mark, and crown N proof mark. Here, the eagle N proof mark survived, but not the one on the slide. And now point number 3, the gold inlay. You will find many PPs and PPKs that are have the gold inlay, but generally I've never known a factory gun to have gold inlay. So these examples that you see here with a little bit of gold inlay, you see them come up on auction from time to time. Generally speaking, and I never say 100% because I can't say Walther would never do that. Too many people over the years have said to me, Walther would never do that, and then later we find out, well, actually they did. But generally speaking, a factory engraved gun does not have gold inlay. So that is point number 3. Now the style is oak leaf and acorn, but just from my experience, the acorns and the oak leaf are different than the factory engraved guns. This is very Germanic and this is very common. You see the oak leaf and if you look at the detail, and this is why I think it was period done, because this is very Germanic, and you can even see the veins in the leaves. And you'll see the same thing with the factory engraved, although the veins are just different. I don't want to go into too much detail, but the veins and the acorns are different on the factory engraved guns. You do see the stippling, the amount of detail. I don't know how magnified we can do for you, but the entire surface has been stippled. And just is absolutely beautiful. This is very common for both factory and custom engraved, so this would have been somebody in Germany who did this engraving likely in 43 or 44. Here's the front grip strap. No engraving on the magazine. I'll show you the magazine. It's 22 caliber, of course. So nothing special, it's just a standard 22 caliber magazine. And the back strap here. This one has the custom shield of Nuremberg. I said a family crest in the video, and I was corrected. I was respectfully corrected that that is the crest for Nuremberg, not the Phillips family. And on this one, they did checker the ejection port, which was, in the factory guns, they often did that as well. On the Phillips gun, they did not. So those are just some of the comparisons between these two guns. You do see the safety lever is engraved, as is the safety lever here. In fact, here you see an oak leaf, which again, I don't usually see that in factory guns. They'll have some other kind of ornamental. But the oak leaf there is a little bit unique. So all that is to say, this is custom engraved from the time. Let's take a look at the ivory grips, which we know he liked ivory. Okay, here's the ivory grip from the Gunther presentation. Notice that the screw goes in here, but does not come out the other side. But this style of ivory grip looks exactly like the factory ivory grips. This is a set of ivory grips that come from the factory. Notice the other side. So these are the Bar factory grips, and these are the standard factory grips. So I would say, there's some little differences here. So these are from the correct period, and maybe the engraver had a connection with the factory and ordered the grips. And then what I can see is the screw goes in, and the thickness of the grip was widened when they added the Luftwaffe eagle. This is, in my opinion, this is a Luftwaffe eagle. This was added on, and so the screw only goes in so far and doesn't come out the other side. And in the typical factory grip, you can see the screw goes in one side and it fastens to the other side. So that's the factory grip. I don't have a strong feeling as to whether these are factory or not factory, but whoever did the engraving, I believe, also did this specialty ivory eagle, which again, very cool. Okay, let's go back and talk a little bit about Gunther Bar and why this needs a little bit more research in order to make a stronger connection. So the only connection is the capture paper saying they came back together and the name that is written on the NSFK Dagger. So Gunther, as I mentioned before, born in 1921, he seemed to have joined the NSFK, which is the flying club, before he turned 18. And in 1939 had a dagger presented to him either by his commanding officer or he had it done himself. But one would have to assume he excelled in the NSFK. So he's presented a dagger, and then he joins the Luftwaffe in 1941. You can see here, if you go to Wikipedia, you can see a little bit about his life. You can see him here, photographed, what he looked like. By the time he was 20, he was in the Luftwaffe and was an ace by 1943. Now, this was a surprise to me. What does it take to become an ace? I thought it was like 25 kills. As it turns out, it does vary a bit. There's been some variety over the years, but generally it's 5 kills. And so he very quickly, he did 50 missions, and within the first few missions, he became a Luftwaffe ace. So after 5 kills, you can see here, they actually list the date and how many kills, the actual time that he shot down the planes, and where it happened. So all this information is available online. His total was actually 37 kills. 36 of them were nighttime flights. So he was a nighttime flyer, and unbeknownst to the Allies at the time, or at least if they knew about it, they were keeping quiet. They did have onboard radar. So in other words, the night fighters, when they went up, they could pick up the enemy bombers at night, and that's why they were able to find them. Otherwise, it's really hard to find them at night, but they had onboard radar on these fighter planes. So by 1942, they had the radar, and by early 1943, he was flying and shooting down bombers. Now, these bombers, those of you who are British, sorry to say, the nighttime bombers were, of course, the British bombers, and that is documented because you can see the British planes. There are some American planes there. But what the U.S. and England did at the time, the U.S. did daytime missions and the British did the nighttime missions. Since Gunther was a nighttime fighter pilot, he was shooting down British bombers as they were coming in to bomb Germany. So basically, he was pretty good at his job, and he was serving his country, which gets us back to the swastikas. And this is all conjecture on my part, but I don't think he was a hardcore Nazi. Now, whenever I talk about Nazi guns, I get emails from people in Germany, and they say, you know, not everybody that served in the armed forces were Nazis. I totally get it. They did, however, pledge allegiance to Adolf Hitler, and so therefore, if you joined the German military, you took a pledge of allegiance to Adolf Hitler. However, I also recognize, just like here in any country, in the United States, if you join the military, it doesn't mean you're loyal to Biden or Obama or Donald Trump. It means I'm there to serve my country, and that's what I believe about Gunther, because here's what's unique about him. After the war was over, he joined the German Air Force. So joining the German Air Force in 1965 all the way up, I think it was to about 1975, he was in the West German Air Force. Now, if he was an ardent Nazi or a hardcore Nazi, they would not have let him join the West German Air Force. And in fact, swastikas were banned. They're outlawed. You cannot have swastikas. And as an Air Force, he was a major in the West German Air Force. He could not have this gun in his possession. I mean, he could if he wanted to hide it, or he could just make a clean slate of it and sell it or give it away to a GI. Again, the capture paper is dated November of 45, so hostilities are over. This is not a situation where they said, put your hands up, give me your weapon. That's not what happened in this case. I believe this was a friendly handover, or he sold it. I know people like to say the GIs were a bunch of thieves, they went over and stole things, but my own father-in-law, I've told this story over and over again, he was there immediately after the war, and they loved, on their furlough or their day off, they would go to all the shops and villages and buy things, and he said there was a lot of Nazi memorabilia. I also have a letter from Heinrich Krieghoff, who said after the war was over, they employed as many people as possible, putting together guns from leftover parts to sell at the USPX. And so that's the on-base exchange, because everybody that went over there wanted souvenirs. Now, all conjecture. I'm probably a little defensive about the GIs being a bunch of thieves. They were there to help rebuild Germany and stimulate the economy. And one of the things that people did, Germans sold some of their Nazi memorabilia. Not sure that's what happened in this case, but we'd love to hear from you. Again, respectful opinions are welcome. If we can track down a little bit more information on J.E. Ford, and we do have his service number there, or if somebody in Germany knows the family, if somebody could verify, yes, this was Gunther Bahr's gun, we'd love to hear confirmation. What is this worth, by the way? You can see the auction estimate. From what I can tell, it first showed up in 2010, and the estimates were $9,000 to $10,000. It sold then. And it may have sold again in 2014. It looks like it came up again for auction, and the estimates were a bit higher. But what is it really worth? Without the rock solid connection, because people write to me and say, I have this gun and my father said it came from Albert Speer's. Do you have any proof? No. It's really only worth the sum of the parts. If you can make a connection, that's when the price shoots way up. So as a piece of history, it'd be great if we got other information, but if I am selling this or buying this, it's worth the sum of the parts. I believe this beautifully custom engraved, period correct Walther PP has got to be worth about $10,000 just because the amount of work and the ivory, and you can't actually make these anymore. It would be illegal to even make this gun. But I'm thinking the sum of the parts, this has got to be worth at least $8,000 to $10,000 conservatively. And this presentation dagger, of course, with the attribution, on this case, Gunther Bar, if you believe that inscription, and I do, if you make this connection to Gunther Bar Luftwaffe Ace, this has to be worth at least $5,000 by itself. With the capture document, that again adds value to it as well. So the sum of the parts are somewhere in the 15,000 range. And I'm just going through my mental thinking on how much is something like this worth, and that's what I come up with. By the way, one other reason I believe this inscription is authentic is because if you look at the write-up in Rock Island, they mention the inscription here and here, but they never evidently looked up the fact that it was Gunther Bar and that he was a Luftwaffe ace, because it's nowhere in the ad. This sold without them ever saying, by the way, Gunther Bahr is a Luftwaffe ace, he was a night fighter, he was a major in the German Air Force, and he died in 2009. Actually, I think they do say he died in 2009. But they never mentioned the fact that he was a Luftwaffe ace. So if you were going to fake something to make it look like it came from a Luftwaffe ace, don't you think you would mention that in the ad? They didn't. They never mentioned it in the ad. So we're mentioning it now. And we'd like to hear from you if you have any additional information about this assembly. This is very cool. I'm going to keep it for a while as we gather information. If we get more facts, I'll get back to you and give you an update. But for now, I just wanted to show it to you because I really enjoy these guns, and I hope you do as well. Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. I'm going to do a real quick video which is going to be about Christmas. Christmas is coming. There's supply chain issues. And therefore, if you can't find anything for Christmas, I'm going to make some suggestions that we offer at Legacy Collectibles. So stay tuned.